Consider the tables employee and department as shown in the slide. The table employee consists of the columns EMP-ID, name, MZR-ID, gender, DOJ, and DPT-ID, whereas the table department consists of the columns DPT-ID, name, location, and head. In the table employee, the column EMP-ID is the primary key, as all its entries are distinct, and in the table department, the column DPT-ID is the primary key, as all its entries are distinct. The column DPT-ID, which acts as a primary key in the table department, also exists in the table employee. So, in the table employee, DPT-ID acts as a foreign key. Read the question in this slide. It says, add one more column, marital status, to the table employee with suitable constraint so that either single or married value can be inserted in the column. That means you are asked to insert a column called marital status to the table employee, which can accept the values as either single or married. The first step in the query is to alter the table employee to add the column marital status, and the second step in the query will be to accept only the values of single or married for the column called marital status, which can be done using the enum constraint. So the query becomes alter table employee, then the next line, add marital status enum within bracket single comma married, both under quotations, followed by a semicolon. Once you execute this query, you will see an extra column called marital status getting displayed on the table employee as shown in this slide. Currently, there are no entries in the column marital status, but values such as single or married can be inserted. Say you want to insert an entry single to the column marital status for the EMP ID as 1. Then the query will be update employee set marital status equal to single where EMP ID is equal to 1. Again, if you want to insert an entry called married to the column marital status for EMP ID as 2, then the query will be update employee set marital status equal to, instead of single, you are going to put married now. Then where EMP ID is equal to 2 followed by semicolon. So it ends like that. After you execute these two queries, you will see that for EMP ID as 1, the value single has been added into the column marital status, and for EMP ID as 2, the value married has been added into the column marital status, as can be seen in the output of this slide. Read the question in this slide. It says, write a query to display the names of employees along with their department name which they belong to. That means you are asked to display the names of employee from the employee table along with their department name in the department table. So, we have to match the entries of the DPT ID column in the employee table with the corresponding DPT ID column in the department table using an inner join. As a result, the SQL query becomes select e.name as EMP name. Here E is the alias name for the table employee and EMP name is the alias name for the column called name in the table employee. Then we have a comma. Then D.name as DPT name. Here D is the alias name for the table department and DPT name is the alias name for the column called name in the table department. Then in the next line we have from employee E inner join department D on E.dptid is equal to D.dptid. This means the names of employees along with their department name will be extracted from the tables employee and department based on the inner join condition of E.dptid is equal to D.dptid. So, just check the employee and the department table. For the DPTID as 10, 20 or 30 in the employee table, there is a match in the DPTID column of the department table. With DPTID as 10, we have name as sales. With DPTID as 20, we have name as marketing. And with DPTID as 30, we have name as finance. As a result, the corresponding department name for the employees have been extracted using the matching DPTID. And the output table in this slide shows the employee name along with their DPT name for the matching DPTID. Just check the output table. For name as Astik Das Gupta, the DPTID was 10 in the employee table, which matches with the DPTID as 10 in the department table, and for that the corresponding value of name was sales. That's why the first entry in the output table was EMP name as Astik Das Gupta and DPT name as sales. In the same way, we get the rest of the entries in the output table after matching the corresponding DPT ID. Just read the question in this slide. It says, write a query to display the records of all the employees who belong to the department sales or marketing. That means you have to show the records of all the employees who belong to the department either sales or marketing. Since the records to be displayed are not specifically mentioned, so you have to presume that all the column entries of the employee table are needed to be displayed, but only with department as sales or marketing. So the query will be select star from employee. Here star extracts all the column entries from the table called employee. Then in the next line we have the where clause to specify the condition. The where clause is where department ID, which is DPT ID in, then comes the subquery, which is select DPT ID from department where name in within bracket sales comma marketing followed by a semicolon. So the DPT ID should be selected from the subquery. So from the subquery we will be selecting those DPT ID from the table department where the corresponding name is either sales or marketing. Now if we look at the department table for name as sales and marketing, the corresponding DPT ID are 10 and 20. That means for name as sales, the DPT ID is 10, and for name as marketing, the DPT ID is 20, as can be seen in the department table. That's why we will be extracting all the column entries from the employee table using the star symbol after the select operator, where DPT ID is either 10 or 20. The output table in this slide shows all the column entries from the employee table with DPT ID as either 10 or 20.